Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm McKenna. I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. And I'm very excited this afternoon to be doing this virtual event featuring some wonderful Christmas novels. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got packages behind me on my bookcase, and we're going to have a great Christmas-themed discussion and also hear about some of these new charming books that have just come out. I will mention to those of you looking for an easy holiday gift, we still have our Murder by the Box subscriptions. So we have Cozy Corner, Best of the Month, and Crime Fiction Legends. You can find out more about those on our website under the Murder by the Box tab. I've also, as always, put a link in the comments, both on Facebook and YouTube, for more information about these authors, more information about their books, or to order books. You can click on the link right there. And please don't be shy. Questions are welcome. We'll be chatting about all the new releases for about, 40 minutes or so. So you have plenty of time to get your questions in here, and we'd love to get to those in a little bit. To start with, I'm going to bring out Anne-Marie Ryan. Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. We have a couple of you joining us from the UK, so it's always nice to be able to do these international events, and we do a middle of the day, so it's not too late for you at least. So thank you for being here.
Thanks very much.
I'm going to do your bio, and then we'll bring on someone else. So Anne-Marie Ryan is a book editor at Hachette Children's Books in the UK and has written and published children's books under several pseudonyms. She lives in London with her husband, 2 daughters, and an indifferent cat. And she's here today to talk about Christmas by the Book, which is her first novel for adults. And I will say, John is working at the store right now, but he has read and loved Christmas by the Book and is hand selling it this holiday season. So we're very, very excited about it. Thanks again for being here. We also have Jenny Bayless with us. Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Also coming to us from the UK. Thanks again for staying up late to do this.
Thank you. This isn't as late as some.
I'm sure that's true. So Jenny Bayless lives in a small seaside town in the UK with her husband, their children having left home for big adventures. After having been a professional cake baker for many years, she went back to college at age 39 to study part-time for a degree in creative and professional writing. Bayless likes long walks, baking days, stationery, and shamelessly wearing party dresses to the supermarket. She's here today to talk about Season for Second Chances, which is her new release. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and we have a writing duo who are going to be on here, and Karma Brown is half of Maggie Knox. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thanks for having us here.
I'm happy to have you here. So I'm going to do your bio, and we will be joined by Marissa in just a minute. So Karma Brown is an award-winning journalist and best-selling author of 5 novels, including the #1 national bestseller, Recipe for a Perfect Wife, as well as the nonfiction bestseller, The 4% Fix, How 1 Hour Can Change Your Life. Her writing has appeared in publications such as Self, Redbook, Today's Parent, and Chatelaine. She lives just outside Toronto with her family and a labradoodle named Fred. And your new book as Maggie Knox is Holiday Swap, correct?
Correct.
All right. So I know Marissa had something. She's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. So as soon as she is here, I'll get her added to the conversation. But for right now, why don't we just start with the basics? So can you tell us about your novel? It can be an elevator pitch, or as I like to say, you can stop on a few floors if you need to. But let's go ahead and start with the order that I brought you on. So Anne-Marie, would you like to tell us about your new book?
Sure. Well, Christmas by the Book is my debut, and it's a book close to my heart because it's all about books. And as someone who has worked in publishing for over 20 years, books are kind of my life, my work, my passion. So when it came to writing my first adult novel, I obviously picked a topic that I knew very well. So it's about Nora and Simon Walden. They're a couple in their early 50s who run a bookshop in the Cotswolds, which is a beautiful area west of London. I live in the UK and I've lived there for over 20 years, but I grew up in Massachusetts. So the Cotswolds to me is how I imagined England being before I moved there. It's where I actually live in London is very different, but the Cotswolds are gorgeous. So Nora's mother had set up the Stoford bookshop, and that's where Nora grew up. So the bookshop is in her blood. And unfortunately, it's not really thriving at the moment. It's facing competition from Amazon and supermarket selling books super cheap. So I'm sure all bookshop owners can relate to that.
Yeah.
And they've fallen into debt, although Nora has kept this a secret from her husband because he's had some health problems. As Christmas approaches, they are missing their daughter who's off traveling, and Nora's worried that this might be their last Christmas in the shop because she's not sure if they're going to be able to dig themselves out of their financial difficulties. But one day, an elderly man comes in looking for a very specific book, and it turns out they do have it in stock, and it's actually been on their shelves for years and years. They'd given up hope of ever selling it, but after making that sale, it gets them thinking about the nature of hope and random acts of kindness. So they send out 6 Christmas books to members of their community who they think need cheering up. And those books basically transform the recipients' lives in the run-up to Christmas. And I don't want to say too much about how that happens, but the 6 stories all come together on Christmas Eve when the bookshop is holding what they think is their last ever Christmas Eve party, a tradition that goes back years and years and years since Nora's mother ran the shop. But essentially, it's a book about community, about how books help you in times of difficulty. Although it's a Christmas book and obviously has a happy ending, it does tackle some trickier themes because Christmas, although it's a really joyful time of year, it can also be a really difficult time of year for people. For example, one of the characters in my book is, like me, an American living in the UK. I've lived here for years, but Matteo in my book has only been living in the UK for a year. So he's missing his family back in California. So he's lonely and homesick. Another character in the book has a very senior level job in government, but he's suffering from depression. And there's a teenage boy in the book who is grieving the death of his sister. There's a teacher who retired recently and has sort of lost her place and status in the world. So in different ways, the books sort of transform them and help them make connections with other readers and members of their local community. So it's a book all about how you never need to feel lonely if you have a good book at your side.
That's great. We actually do have Marissa with us. So before we continue with the descriptions, I'm going to go ahead and bring her on and do her introduction as well. So let's see here. Hi, Marissa. How are you?
Hi. Sorry about that. I was stuck in Los Angeles traffic.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine. So Marissa Stapley is a former magazine editor and the internationally best-selling author of 4 novels, Mating for Life, Things to Do When It's Raining, The Last Resort, and Lucky. Marissa's journalism has appeared in magazines and newspapers across North America, including the Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, Elle, Today's Parent, and Reader's Digest. She lives in Toronto with her family and a precocious black cat named Oscar. And as I mentioned earlier, she is one half of Maggie Knox. So they are here to talk about Holiday Swap. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So I'm going to continue with, we were just kind of giving brief descriptions of the book, the new book. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with Jenny. Why don't you tell us about your new book?
Okay, well, this is, can you see this? A Season for Second Chances. So this is my second adult novel. And this is about, essentially it's about Annie, who is in her 40s, which is her mid-40s, which is a bit older for a heroine, quite often in sort of rom-com type genre. But I felt like I needed to do a bit of a shout out for the slightly older woman. So Annie is a successful restaurateur. She's got 2 grown-up sons who've left home. She's been married to her husband Max for 26 years. They have had a bit of a up and down marriage, and basically the marriage comes to a bit of a sticky end when she catches him in the middle of an affair. So she decides enough's enough, and she leaves everything behind. And she goes, she basically tries to she leaves in a hurry, and then needs to find somewhere to live. And she takes up a guardianship of a little house on the coast, the southeast coast of England. And it's about her rebuilding her life, really, and the people that she meets. She starts a book club. There's a very tight-knit community where she moves to, and she has to fight off Max, who is, determined to woo her back. And so it's just really about the relationships that she builds as an older woman. I say older woman, a woman in her 40s, but by rom-com standards, that's really old. So, and it's just about her journey, really, and all the lovely friends that she makes. And I set it on the southeast coast, right on the coast. She practically lives on the beach, and that's because that's kind of where I live. So and in the winter, which is, this book is set in the winter, it is wild on the coast in the winter. So it's that kind of cut off from the rest of the world, but just with this small community feeling.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to leave it up to the two of you to figure out who's talking about the book, and how you're going to divide talking about this. It's always hard as a moderator. So, Karma, Marissa, who would like to talk about the book?
Why don't you start, Carmen?
I can start
Your thread.
Yes, okay. This is the holiday swap, and Marissa and I are first-time holiday romance writers. And before I just give you a quick, maybe we'll talk about how we ended up writing together, but this was a book that came out of a conversation just before Christmas 2019, when we were both working on different projects and feeling sort of isolated in our work, and just had this crazy thought that maybe we would co-write, and then maybe we would write something with a happy ending, because our books typically don't have happy endings, and we were craving that at that time. So the holiday swap is a story about 2 twins, identical twins, Charlie and Cass. And Cass lives in a snowy, charming town in California that we made up, and it's called Starlight Peak, and she runs the family bakery out of this town. And her whole life has been there. She hasn't really left, brief stint in school, but she's come back and is working there at the bakery and running everything. And her sister, Charlie, became a pastry chef and then moved to LA, where she was working in a restaurant, and then ended up getting on a reality TV show where she is a co-host. And it's sort of, if anyone's seen Zumbos or any of those, the British Bake Off shows, it has a similar feel to that. So she's working there in the hopes of getting a promotion at the end of this very intense competition. And she has a real jerk for co-host. And what happens to Charlie is that she ends up getting hit on the head as she's taking a break from her annoying co-host in the room where they keep in the stock room. I'm like, what is the name of that room? And ends up with a concussion and loses her sense of taste and smell. And so she cannot create the recipe she needs to create for this show. So she and her sister decide to swap places in the lead up to Christmas. And it's a very quick, this is what I love about holiday romances. You can actually make a million amazing things happen in a week. So it's a very short lead up to Christmas as they swap. And really, it is a book about sisterhood. It's a book about learning what you really want out of life and taking chances, and the opportunity to swap lives. There's 2 love interests, obviously, because there are 2 sisters in this story. Gives them insight into maybe a future that might be different from the present they have. Do you have anything to add, Marissa?
I think maybe I'll just add that it was our first foray into writing a rom-com and our first foray into co-authoring. And it was a really cool experience in that we were talking about swapping lives and sort of joking around about swapping lives in our author lives one day. And Karma was doing promo and I was doing editing. And so the seed of the idea actually came from us sort of fantasizing idly about what would it be like if we could swap lives. And so it's been very interesting to explore the reality of that, because the reality of swapping lives for Cass and Charlie is very complicated, and we've learned so much about our writing and each other co-authoring as well. And it's been an experience for us and our characters. And we've been living in this Christmas world. I think it feels like it's been Christmas for the past year and a half, right? We just finished our second one, and that's been kind of fun too.
So since you're the only co-authors we have, I'm going to go ahead and get this question out of the way and then move on to things that pertain to everyone else. How did you divide the writing? Was one of you each sister's story, or was it just a shared document that you just went back and forth on?
So we gave it a great deal of thought, and then we decided, because we wanted this to be different and fun, like we wanted this process to be fun and we wanted the book to be fun, and we realized that we could take advantage of the fact that there were two of us, meaning we wouldn't have to each take a character and then get backed into a corner and not know what to do with that character. So we decided to swap chapters. So you'd be in one chapter with Cass, and then your next chapter would be with Charlie, and your co-author would have to figure out how to get them out of the predicament they were in. Although we had a pretty tight outline, so
we did. That sounds like a choose your own adventure situation, which would be scary. But yeah, as long as you had a tight outline, I'm sure it was great. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Mhm.
So this question: what message do you hope that readers take away from your novel? And let's start with Jenny this time.
I think the message is that there's always hope. There's always a second chance, whether it's to, find love again, or find a home again, or, find new friendships. I think it's just about that sort of love is kind of endless, whether that be friendship or with a lover. And you can always find it. It's never too late. You don't just have one chance and then that's it, you've blown it. And I think that's really where I was coming from with that.
All right. Let's go with Maggie Knox. How about you, Karma?
I don't know that I have such an excellent answer as Jenny just gave about that. I do think that we hope that readers, aside from just really enjoying, getting in the spirit of Christmas and having two very swoon-worthy men to enjoy through this story, just that idea of being able to step outside of your life and take risks and try different things, because you really never know what might be waiting. And if you get stuck in your ways and you're not willing to be curious and willing to try a new adventure, that maybe you won't also get the benefit of taking that risk and being able to, sort of look outside your comfort zone. So anything else, Marissa?
No, I think that's absolutely right.
All right. And Anne-Marie?
I think that it's probably that small acts of kindness can make a really big difference. And you never know, you don't always know that those little things that you do for someone else could be the life ring that they need at that point in time. In the case of my book, it's like books are the act of kindness, but a friend, when I was having a really hard time a couple of years ago, she's a great knitter, and she knit me a tiny little leprechaun and sent it from New York over to London. And when I got it, it was just it was a tiny gesture, but it made a really big difference. And I sort of kept it as a talisman in my bag and still do, just because it was like, oh, someone was thinking of me and reached out when they knew I needed it. And I think that's the underlying message in my book, that those little gestures can make a really big difference.
Yeah, that's lovely. So what was your favorite scene in the novel to write? and why? And let's start this time with Marissa.
So my favorite scene was a scene with Miguel and Cass surfing. So they go on a date and in Los Angeles, and Miguel teaches Cass how to surf, although it doesn't exactly turn out that way, and it's quite romantic. And so I think I mentioned I'm in Los Angeles right now. I happened to be standing on a pier watching this couple yesterday morning, just floating on their surfboards, not surfing, which is more what happens in this scene. And I just I felt like a bit of a creep because I was just standing there staring at them and just thinking, oh, I know how romantic that is because that's my favorite scene. And that's what's most fun about writing a romance, is really leaning into those swoony romantic scenes. And in this case, it was particularly fun to be writing something so summery during a Christmas rom-com. We're so used to snow and winter in Canada that being able to flip it around and write something in a warm climate was fun for me.
What about you, Karma?
There's a scene where Jake is the love interest in the small, snowy, charming Christmas town. He's a firefighter and a photographer, and he saves Cass's cat, which has gotten out because his dog Bonnie has scared the cat out of the bakery and it's run up a tree. And he, saves Gato. That's the name of the cat in the story. And it's just a very sweet scene between Jake and Charlie, even though he thinks it's Cass. And it was just, I don't know, it was all the, it's Christmas and there's the rescue dog that scares the cat and there's all this drama, and then this lovely fireman just, gently takes the cat out of the tree and warms her up. So there were just a lot of nice little moments like that I remember enjoying the fun of that one for sure.
Excellent. Okay, how about you, Anne-Marie?
Well, I loved writing the happy ending. That was joyful, but I also loved one of the characters is called Olwen, and she's the retired teacher, and the book she gets starts making her think that maybe now that she's retired, she might like to write her own book. So she starts writing a cozy crime book. And as she was planning this cozy crime book, I started thinking, oh, actually, I think I want to write Olwen's cozy crime story about a gardening club that keeps having murders. So I had a lot of fun with that.
All right, and Jenny?
I think my favorite, I love the scenes, the book club scenes when all the women come together. But I think she goes on a date with somebody, Annie goes on a date, and she is trying to be cool, and he rolls a joint, and she just kind of acts like that's, she's down with that, and she's completely not. And she just gets stoned, and, she just there's a sort of a catalogue of things that go wrong with this date that seem to be going so right. And I think that I just like the fun of doing that, of her being who she is, being so sort of having been so sensible in this restaurateur, and she's, got a very grown up life, and then just being an idiot, smoking a joint on a tree trunk.
Excellent. So this is a little personal question, but just to get into the feel of the holidays, what is your favorite holiday tradition? So I think we're back to starting with Anne-Marie.
Am I allowed to?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Jenny will know what I mean by going to see a pantomime. So I'm a big theater person and do amateur dramatics in my free time. And in England, they have this crazy tradition of doing these shows in December, which are they're based on fairy tales, but they're have pop songs and regionally specific storylines and jokes, and their audience participation and lots of shouting and sweets being thrown into the audience, and they're completely bonkers. And the first time I went to one, I had no idea what it was all about, but now I go with a group of friends and their kids every year, and it's a lot of fun. But the other one is my mother makes salt dough Christmas ornaments, and she has every year since I was a kid. And so I have a box of ornaments from every year since I was a baby that she's made. And so putting up the Christmas tree ornaments is really special because it's completely unique because they're all ornaments my mom made me.
Oh, that's great. And my speaking of mothers, my mom and I have had a tradition for many years where we go to London for the holidays. And so we always go to see the Panto. We're there from New Year's. We fly out on New Year's Day and then come back like on the 10th. We're not doing it this year, but at second year in a row. We're greatly missing it. But we always go see, because the Christmas shows are still running for like that week. And we always go to see like the big pantomime show. And the first time we went, it was the same thing. Like, what is happening? And now we love it.
Everyone shouting.
Yes, exactly. And there was a local theater company. There's that every year also I figured out does one here. And so in 2019, that was our staff holiday party. We all went to see the Panto here. So yeah, it's a great tradition. Okay, Jenny, you're up.
That's really hard because I am an absolute Christmas nut. I love Christmas so much. So it's really hard to pin it down. And I think it's changed over the years. But now that my kids are grown up and they don't live with us anymore, when we get them home, when they finally get home for Christmas, we all sit down together and we watch every year National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, because it's so stupid, and even though we know all the words by now, it's that thing. The boys are home, we're all together, we'll watch a movie that we all know really well and eat too much food, and it's just, yeah, that's my favorite thing, when I get my ducks back in a row.
Yeah. Okay, Karma.
I was going to say, I always watch that movie too, that ever since I have been young. That is a family movie for us. There's so many, it's so hard to pick, isn't it? I make a Christmas cake that was my great-grandmother's every year with my mom, and we use the same pans that she used to make the wedding cakes in, my great-grandmother, and the same recipe. So that's always at the beginning of December, which starts the holiday season for me. But when I was growing up, I have hippie parents. They were deeply into making us believe in all things Christmas and the magic of Christmas. So one of the things they did was to sprinkle what we called magic dust, because we didn't have a fireplace. We lived in a farmhouse. And so they would sprinkle it from the front door, because Santa had to come through the front door all the way to the tree. And as a child, I would keep it in a little container and put it on my shelf every year. And I thought it sparkled. I thought it was magical dust that Santa left as he came in. And then my mom told me much later that it was actually just flour. But I was keeping tiny jars of flour for years. But I have done that with my daughter ever since she was a baby. It's there every year. And even though she's now 13, if I didn't do it, I know she would. And I do put sparkles in mine. So I have elevated the tradition now, I think. But I'm hoping that, then she'll do it with her family. So that's my sort of Christmas, my special Christmas tradition.
That's lovely. Okay, Marissa.
My favorite, and I do have many as well, but I think the one that we do every year, no matter what, and COVID didn't affect, because it certainly affected so many of the traditions we had, is that I give my kids and husband, and buy for myself a new pair of pajamas and a new book on Christmas Eve. And I love it because it's fun to have something to open on Christmas Eve. But I also love it because my kids get so excited, and we all, as parents who are writers, we want our kids to love writing. Love reading. And Carmen and I have discussed how that doesn't always happen. Like, you think naturally, of course, your children are going to be avid readers and bookworms because you're an author. But they always get excited about their Christmas Eve book, and then they go to bed and they read it to distract themselves from their excitement over Santa coming, or the imminent reveal of what's the truth behind the dust.
Well played there. Way to dodge that. Yeah. We just had a great comment that says you can use uncooked oatmeal with edible glitter as magic food for reindeer also. So,
yeah. I wish I'd had that tip years ago, but I'll pass that along. That's a good one.
Okay, so back to the books. Did you have a specific inspiration for your book? forgive me. I don't know who should go first now. I feel like it's Jenny.
I think I had a very clear, I mean, I know I keep banging on about the fact that Annie is in her 40s, but I think I just wanted to really, my inspiration was to have a really big romance for a woman in her 40s, just to, you know, that was where I was really felt strongly about that, just to say, because I do think society has this way of pigeonholing women after a certain age where we're not supposed to, I don't know, be sort of sexy or get the leading role or, you know, that kind of stuff. And I wanted to have a slightly older woman with a lot of baggage having the leading role. And so, yeah, I was really passionate about that. I always knew that Annie was going to kick ass.
Excellent. All right. So Maggie Knox, who wants to take this one?
You go ahead, Marissa.
I mean, basically Hallmark holiday movies, right? Like that was the part 2 of our sort of idly fantasizing about swapping lives and there being 2 of us as authors. And then it happened to be holidays approaching and Hallmark feel good, not necessarily Hallmark, but all the favorite holiday classics were on or we were watching them. And we decided that that's what makes us feel great. I mean, there's almost nothing better around the holiday season than just settling in and watching something you know is going to have a happy ending. And so we were just inspired to write something that felt that great, familiar, and warm and fuzzy.
And we did actually, and we were joking about this the other day because we remembered that we hadn't initially decided what we wanted to write. And so then we were like, maybe we should write a thriller, like a murder mystery. And we talked about that for maybe a second before we realized we didn't want to write a murder mystery thriller. And then we moved to let's write something happy and sweet and fun. And that's where we ended up. So it could have been a very different conversation, I guess, this Christmas, but we went holiday romance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anne-Marie?
For me, it was just writing for adults was the big undertaking, because I've written loads of children's books under different names. And so for this felt really different because it was a lot longer for a start. So I felt like I was like running a marathon when I usually ran sprints. And also it was my first book with my name on it. So I was very, it was a really different experience for me, but really enjoyable. And in the end, I don't think it was that different from my children's work, because I think my book is kind of like a fairy tale for grown-ups, even with, instead of 3 wishes, there's 6 books and the magic that they do. So I think it's, it's very much longer than my children's stuff, but the magic, even though it's not a magical book, it's got that, I think, it wasn't as different as I was expecting it to be, because it's got a lot of heart, it's got heart and magic and a happy ending. So it had more in common than it had differences.
So do you have a favorite Christmas or holiday book that you've read? Any kind of holiday novel? And we are to Karma this time.
Yes, and Karma does not have an answer for this. I don't know why I'm never prepared. It happened again. I am never prepared with a book. And as soon as you ask me that question, my mind is blank.
And you're like, please don't be me first. Please don't be me first.
I know. I was thinking, please don't be me first, because I forgot that this is going to be a question. I honestly, I cannot come up with one book. From the movie perspective, and I know there are so many problems with this movie, but my daughter watched Love Actually last night. She's 13, and there's a few parts in there that I was like, oh, this is, and she was very quick to pick up on some of the stalkery elements toward the end, because our teenagers are much more astute now than things were even 10 years ago. But I don't know, for me, it's more movies. It's like that movie. It's the National Lampoon's movie. So those are my standards that I watch every year. And of course, Rudolph. of course.
Mhm.
The original, like claymation-y one.
Yes, the claymation one is an elf. So
An
I
elf.
know it's not about books, but I do love Christmas books. I just can't think of any.
This
That's
does
fair.
happen every
I
time,
was
and she's
just
such an
talking
avid
to-
reader.
I am. It happens every time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. I have failed at the
I
first
was
question.
just talking to a friend this morning about Elf. It's such a great movie.
It's such a great movie.
That's
Yeah.
such a great movie. Okay, Marissa, how about you? You can make up books or movies. I don't really care.
So I have some books. So I really enjoyed 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Lewis that was sent to me earlier this year. And I also, Jenny Bayless, who's here, and we share a publisher. And one day, a few months ago, remember, Karma, we asked for the graphics for our social media, and they accidentally sent the season for Second Chances, and I was like looking at the art and like, what is this book? So I got it, and it's delightful. I think I didn't read a ton of holiday rom-coms before because really we were more into the movies, but it just feels so good. So I really enjoyed that.
And a plus 40-year-old woman. I
It's
love
great.
that. That is my
Thank
favorite
you.
part about that book. So yeah.
I know, but you're like older woman, and I was like, yeah, no.
I know. Well, that's me. I'm an older woman, so
Yeah,
I can
me.
relate. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Anne Marie.
Well, I worked for a while at Harlequin, where I edited a huge number of Christmas romances. So there was a while where like I couldn't read any more Christmas romances because I'd read so many of them. But I love reading them now. But I think my all-time favorite would probably be Little Women, because I'm from Massachusetts, not far from Concord. And I love the fact that they put on a Christmas show to entertain themselves. And my family would refuse to do such things, but that's the dream, that I could force my family to do theatrical performances at Christmas time, like the March Family and Little Women.
Okay, and you, Jenny?
There's a book by Georgette Heyer called The Christmas Party, and I think it's what you would call a cozy mystery, and we would call a cozy murder. And it's a sort of a Christmas set at Christmas, and it's and it's like in a big country house. It's got everything going for it, and there's snow and very posh guests who all have a secret, and there's a murder, and it just ticks all my sort of cozy Agatha Christie buttons. So I do tend to read that each Christmas.
She's in my opinion so underrated. She's so witty and delightful, and her romances too. I mean, just are wonderful. Okay, we have a question from the audience. Do you think that there's a personality trait that cozy or romance writers share? And we are back to Anne Marie to start.
Optimism, I think. I think most of us are optimists and believe in true love. Like, I don't think you'd be writing a romance if you didn't believe that love is out there, and have an optimistic outlook on life.
Jenny?
I think I would definitely agree with Anne Marie on that. And I think you have to like the cozy side of life. I think, you have to sort of be that person that would rather have a cup of tea than snort cocaine, maybe. You like the cozy. I like to be tucked up in bed at night with a cup of tea and a book.
Karma?
Yes, I agree with that. I write basically marriages going bad and terrible things in my other books like that. So, but I have a relationship that I like to think of as sort of, one of those very happily ever after stories. And so, yeah, I do believe in that, and in, these, not soulmates exactly perhaps, but just in love and in second chances and happiness and hopefulness. And so even though I write these dark, disturbing books, sometimes there is that other side to me. So it was nice to put it out in this book. So yeah, I agree with both the other two on those elements for sure.
And Marissa?
I absolutely agree too. I mean, just thinking about talking about my favorite scene and how writing that made me feel, and our book Karma and my books are both very different that we write in our other lives, but um, ultimately we believe in true love. We dedicated our book to our husbands, our happily ever afters, and we have that, and you know, our lives are just a romance novel. Just kidding, but
Basically, yeah.
Okay, so about what's coming next. Jenny, what are you working on now? Do we have another Christmas romance coming around the corner?
There will be another one coming out next Christmas called Meet Me Under the Mistletoe. And I'm also working on my children's book as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right, the two of you, Maggie Knox, are we going to have another collaboration?
we are. I don't know. We sometimes hesitate. Do you want me to? Okay.
You go ahead.
Yeah. So we do. We have another holiday rom-com that we just submitted to our editors called All I Want for Christmas. And we describe it as the hating game meets Nashville. It's set in an American Idol style reality show set in Nashville. Two main characters again, but this time a male and female named Sadie Hunter and Max Brody, who have like super hot onstage chemistry. So they're paired up, but they don't really like each other. And I mean, I think we can all guess what happens. There's a lot of, it's fun. So,
and we put Canada in that one a little bit too. We like to try to fit Canada into our books if we can. So there's a little of Canada in that one too.
A snowy cabin sojourn in Banff.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, Anne-Marie.
I just have to say I adore the show Nashville, so that book sounds.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
already
exciting.
picturing it, the hero looking like Deacon Claiborne in that show.
Yes.
I'm actually working on a book about a chef. Fancy that in a women's fiction, and I guess it's about food and community and all sorts of stuff like that. But I'm supposed to I was supposed to get it to my agent before Christmas. So at the moment, I'm sort of living food and revisions.
All right. So speaking of food, do you have a favorite holiday treat? And I know that Karma already mentioned this cake that you make, but what is your favorite holiday indulgence? And we'll start this time with Marissa.
I love that like peanut butter fudge with the multicolored marshmallows that like should be categorically like really disgusting. But my brother and I both agree, like it just brings back memories of our grandmother and we have to have it. Like it's not Christmas if you don't have it. So now I make it every year.
That's great. Okay. And Karma.
Well, the fruit cake, which most people, and I love eggnog. And I know that those are two things that people despise because the fruit cake has all kinds of dried fruit and raisins and nuts. And for some reason, people here do not like that. And eggnog. So those are sort of my two main holiday treats. I love them. And I'm sorry.
Controversial choices.
They're controversial, both of them, I know, but
not for in England. We love a fruit cake.
Because it's normal in England, right? It's like yeah.
My mom also has made fruitcake for years, and there are many people who don't want it, but it's a tradition. So I will always eat a couple slices of the fruitcake and say check. Anne-Marie?
I am very much anti-fruitcake, which makes it hard living in the UK at Christmas time because mince pies, we're always having mince pies shoved at you. I like Christmas cookies and making Christmas cookies, and the ones that there's two types that I always make. The spritz cookies, where you have like a cookie press and they come out. I always dye them green and make them wreaths and Christmas trees, which is very like 1970s. And I also like making, again, my mother has made them like every single year, of my life, the peanut butter balls with a Hershey kiss. We always call them Mexican hats with the Hershey kiss on top. So yeah, for me, it's all about the Christmas cookie.
Awesome. Jenny?
It's mince pies all the way for me. So I just love them, which is like next level fruitcake. If you don't
I
like
love
fruitcake,
mince pie too.
Really... do you?
I do.
Because if you like fruitcake, you'll love a mince pie. If you don't like fruitcake, you will loathe mince pie.
Can I ask? I've never understood, what is it? It's not meat.
Oh gosh, no. It's all different fruits
and spices.
And you boil them together. So it's all the dried fruits, and the spices, and you boil it together with sugar and brandy. And it becomes sort of like this very thick. It's almost like as if it was raw fruitcake mix. I'm making it sound worse than it is, but it's actually delicious.
It's delicious.
Yeah, I've made that sound really bad. And a tiny little pastry case, and I don't know.
But it has a very distinct flavor.
It does.
It really does.
It's very spiced and very strong tasting, but it's so good. I need to come there, obviously, and have some mince pies with you.
Should just get some delivered from Fort Mason. You'll be set.
Yeah, I know.
All right, last holiday question, and I think we'll probably wrap up actually because we don't have more questions from the crowd. They're being quiet. So do you have a favorite Christmas carol? And I think Anne Marie is up first this time.
Oh,
or a song, it doesn't have to be like a religious carol, like any Christmas music that you love or do not love. You can be anti something also if you'd like.
Well, again, there are a lot of British Christmas songs that the carols here are sometimes sung to different tunes to the tunes they're sung to in the US, which always confuses me. Yeah, like "O Little Town of Bethlehem."
Yep.
Completely different tune here.
Yeah.
So
Really?
I always it always feels wrong to me. But I love David Bowie's Little Drummer Boy version of Little Drummer Boy, which is not super festive sounding, but I really like it. And also, I don't know if you've heard the new Ed Sheeran and Elton John Christmas song, but it's like instant classic, I think.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. Okay, Jenny.
I think it's called Carol of the Bells. Does that?
Yeah.
Yes, the Home Alone one. Oh, I can't get enough of it. I love it.
Okay, Karma.
I think it's called A Christmas Song, Bing Crosby version. That is my, chestnuts roasting on an open fire. That is just every time it comes on, and my family knows it's my favorite, and then they start mocking me in the car because I play Christmas carols. We have a station here that starts them right after Remembrance Day, and it's on in the car. So they make fun of me with that. The one that I cannot stand, and I don't know why anyone puts this song on, is that the Christmas Shoes. Is that the one where the little boy's mother is dying and he's in line to get a Christmas shoe, and this man gives him money so he can take the shoes home before she dies? It is the most depressing song, and every time it comes on, I yell and I change the station. I don't know why and people request it. I don't know. I don't get that one.
The same friend, we are somehow connected. The same friend that I was just talking about Elf with today sent me a link to Christmas Shoes and was like, "This is the worst Christmas song ever."
Was it me?
2 days ago. It might have been you. I might have been you because miserable. Just Okay, Marissa.
So we're pretty serious about Christmas music in our family, and I've made playlists over the years. So I have a Spotify playlist called Perfect Christmas. My 14-year-old son actually downloaded it, and that's what he's listening to on his earpods all the time, which is amazing. So my favorite, I love Joy to the World. My late mom was a minister's wife, and it always makes me, I can hear her singing the beautiful harmonies beside me, and she could always do the harmonies. But I love the Bare Naked Ladies version of We Three Kings, which is,
Me
this is
too.
like a Canadian, which I
So
think
good.
makes up for the fact that I think one of the worst fights Carmen and I ever had was like when I once said I didn't like Michael Bublé. Remember?
Yeah.
So, but
I was
we
like,
now
what's
we
not
know
to
we
like?
share this love of
Yeah.
the Bare Naked Ladies song. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's so good. It's so good. It's got that.
It is good. If you
bass.
haven't heard it, you should. It's really excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Is it
haven't
on your
heard it.
Spotify playlist?
I'll make
Yeah.
it public.
I
Perfect
need you.
Christmas.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to share that, or at least email it. Yeah,
There won't be
Done.
Michael Bublé on there though.
There
Just
is,
in
because
case
my son made
anyone's
me.
a fan.
He insists that oh gosh, is it Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas is best by Bublé, and I might agree.
It is.
It's pretty good, to be fair.
It's kind of an undeniable, like it's
Yeah.
objectively the best. I'm a classically trained violinist. I have a master's degree in violin, and I play corporate holiday parties and the Messiah and all the things. And not that anyone asked, but my favorite to play is John Rutter's Joy to the World, which is
Nice.
very like classical and Handel inspired. And I just did it the other day with a kids choir, and it like made the season for me. So
Nice.
very, very traditional, but I love that one. It's always nice. So anyway, well, it's been very fun talking with all of you about books, about the Christmas season. As I said, there's a link in the comments for more information about the authors, their books, and should you want to order them from us. I do appreciate the cheer and hope and optimism. It certainly makes the holiday season more fun. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and sign us off, and everyone have a great day, a great evening, and thanks again for being here.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks so much.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
All right. Bye.
Bye.